Hi, my name is Sohail Agazadeh. I'm a Microsoft Dynamics X Certified Master and Senior Solution Architect, as well as Microsoft Certified Trainer. I'm affiliated with Guide to Learn. In this demonstration, I'd like to introduce AXSeal's data migration solution for Microsoft Dynamics AX, which can be used by both partners and customers. The data import and export framework for Microsoft Dynamics AX is already out-of-the-box solution and is included in Microsoft Dynamics X 2012 R3. Prior to Microsoft Dynamics X 2012 R2, CU7, it was available as a separate download. It has many benefits. Out of the box, you have 70 different entities. You can create custom entities. There is a utility that allows you to create custom entities using the wizard. The support is available for all the versions of Dynamics X 2012. You can import entity data from multiple sources, such as file, delimited, and fixed width, and open database connectivity. You can export entity data from AX 2012 to other AX 2012 environment as well. You can copy entity data across legal entities. There is a mapping user interface available that allows you to drag and drop fields. It does support for parallel execution from staging to target by using several batch task values. However, this is table-to-table copy. It uses a folder as an input for running periodic imports. Error handling allows you to skip rows that contains errors, but in this utility, the system doesn't tell you exactly what rows has the problem or what fields of that row has the problem. It does support default values, support for number sequences, support external key mapping. Also, it does support for multiple instances of Microsoft Dynamics X Application Object Server. In Dynamics X 2012 R3, there have been additional enhancements. You have additional entities for configuration, support for Microsoft Project, localization, such as fiscal books, support for Microsoft Dynamics X 2012 for retail, additional data sources, supporting for Microsoft Excel data sources. It takes care of the role-based security for processing groups, allowing individuals, member of a specific role, to be able to process certain data. Additional user interfaces for comparing entities across companies, as well as copying entities across companies. Additional entities such as resource requirements, operational route relations have been added. Now you have the support for SQL Server 2014 as well. Additional data sources when you use data import and export as an application integration framework AIF service. This includes files, ODBC, and other Microsoft Dynamics X instances. Error files for data import and export operations are now created in an XML instead of a plain text for easier parsing. However, it still is very complex to find out exactly where the data has a problem. This is a great utility, and Microsoft has invested a lot in this specific framework. However, the knowledge required in order to be able to use this utility properly, it requires individuals working with data import and export to have a full functional knowledge of the Microsoft Dynamics AX. You also have to have technical knowledge of tables behind the scene. You may also include additional developers in order to be able to provide mapping and adding business logics. The sequences of tasks need to be identified, since the data import and export framework does not detect the custom logic. As you see in this slide, in the lower right-hand side, the mapping could be very complicated. So therefore, the programmer requires to modify the business logic by modifying the classes and codes in X++, or perhaps by extending the AIF web services. Needless to say, the mapping could be very complicated, and data import and export framework does the data copy, is a table-to-table copy from source to staging and staging to the target. Creation of a template is not necessarily an easy task. Using the wizard, it requires significant amount of knowledge in regard to functional areas and technical areas. As you see, the field names are technical. However, the functional knowledge is required in order to identify which specific fields must be included. This wizard doesn't automatically detect all necessary fields. By default, it shows the mandatory field, but not necessarily all the fields that are mandatory are included. Needless to say, as part of a data migration, many of the fields have to be included. Unfortunately, this wizard does not automatically find out the business logic behind the scene. It also doesn't detect the custom fields, in case you do have any customization. There are some issues using the data import and export framework. It requires many resources in your company to work collaboratively, since the knowledge required to perform proper data migration is across all functional areas, and it requires engaging development team for custom entities and business logic mapping. Due to the architecture of data import and export framework, which uses the table-to-table copy, that will be a possible bottleneck for tackling custom entities and resource allocation. Also, it does not check for setup values prior to importing an entity, and it simply relies on users' knowledge. Referential integrity is not checked completely. When you have 5 million rows of data that you're importing with data import and export framework, and one of them causes an error, the tool doesn't tell you which row. That's a huge pitfall of this program, and a lot of time is wasted as a result of this. The process of import and export, it's time consuming, and it requires hours of communication between partners and customers to do a proper setup. Creating the source data and mapping is time consuming. First, you have to define the source data format, then you have to determine the entity to use. That leads to defining the processing group, and then finally you have to run the import or export the process. Since the data import and export framework is a data table copy and the staging data might contain business information, therefore Microsoft strongly recommends that you delete the staging data after migration is completed. This requires more administrative overhead. Some fields are not supported as part of the data import and export framework. We have provided a new solution which provides an add-on value to the data migration. We call this exciting product AX Seals Data Migration. In this specific solution, all data flows through AX architecture. Our significant advantage is that we don't use table-to-table copy. All setup forms are validated before master data is created. Imported data in Dynamics AX is guaranteed to work with transactions, unlike the data import and export framework. We support all standard AX fields. No field will be left behind. We also support customization. All customized AX fields are covered. We offer data mapping as well. We have a smart template dependency calculator. All setup and dependent forms are filled with data before the master data is created or updated. Our solution is very fast and flexible. We can generate templates in a fraction of a minute. With one click, we generate all the templates for a given module in Dynamics AX. Our templates are color-coded, which makes the troubleshooting a lot easier. Let's now talk about money. Existing costs for Microsoft Data Import and Export Framework. An average time for data migration, depending on the size of the company, is usually between 600 to 3,000 hours. Let's assume it will take 600 hours to do the data migration. It will cost your customer an average of $220 per hour. That will total of $132,000. Then you may have customization, mapping data requirements, and testing, which is not covered as part of the data import and export framework. On average, that will cost you an additional cost between $100,000 to $300,000. Customers do not wish to pay so much upfront without having an end product. Partners' resources are strained and could be utilized better elsewhere. How long AX Seals data migration takes? We have reduced the time of data migration by up to 75%. Based on an average of 600 hours, our solution takes 150 hours. This saves 450 man-hour work. Therefore, you can use your resources in a more efficient way, have more competitive edge on the market, and have a shorter sales cycle. What are the benefits of our solution? You can retain the control of your client and let us deal with the data migration. Reduce the cost and time by up to 75%. You can opt to pass on the saving to the end user or increase your margin. We deal with customization and complex data mapping for your client's business requirements. We can generate templates separated or all in one and supply to you upfront. We give you the complete migrated data in a database and hand it to you. We also offer ongoing support for data and schematic changes. Why don't you put us to the test? You give us the copy of the database, we provide you with a set of templates, you fill in the real or sample data, we populate the database and show you the result. How much is this worth to you? Let's put all this talk into an action and let me show you how this solution works. The first step of data migration is identifying the data source that is supposed to be brought over into the Dynamics AX. AX Seals Data Migration Program is a quick way in order to generate many different templates in one click. As you can see, for demonstration purpose, I've already launched Dynamics AX and I've selected the product information management. In order to create a product, you need to specify so many different setup parameters prior to creation of a product. Example would be such as product dimension group for product master, a storage dimension group, and tracking dimension group. In case you're using the product dimension group, you may activate the size, color, the style, and configuration. Perhaps you need to adequately map this product to a specific category. Certain products may have certain attributes that you need to identify. So many of this information needs to be set up prior to bringing the data into the system. And if I click on the product master, you notice that by creation of this product, so many of this information needs to be fulfilled, such as the type of a product, either is an item or a service. And since I'm in a product master, the only subtype at this time would be the product master. We have different templates for simple product. The product master requires a product dimension group. And of course, all of this information requires an adequate template, such as creation of a specific product dimension group and activating series of different dimensions, enabling or disabling some of these checkboxes. They're all being generated prior to creation of the product. The configuration technology also is important. Now I'd like to demonstrate the power of AX Seals data migration utility. If I open up this specific directory, I'd like to show you by one click, our utility gives you the capability to generate many different templates that is adequate for the setup of the product master. This specific program generates separate templates and based on a logic behind the scene using Dynamics AX object model, identifies every single possible field and table behind the scene and generates adequate templates for you. The beauty of segregation of these templates is that you can pass on these templates to appropriate personnel in your company in order to fulfill the data that is most familiar to those group of individuals. I'd like to now demonstrate the templates that have been generated. We start with a simple one, such as the color. Our templates are color-coded. The gray indicates that this is a required field. We also have the capability to have multi-company data migration by using the data area ID. I open up a different templates, such as the storage dimension group, and as you see, name is a required field. The rest of the fields are not required, yet every single field is going to be created within our templates. So therefore, no field will be left behind. Again, you can specify the data area ID that is available within the template in order to pass on the data to a different company. Let's take a look at the product. As you see, the product number, the product type, the language ID, the variant configuration technology, product dimension group, a storage dimension group, all of these are mandatory fields. You can pass on these specific templates to a particular key stakeholder in your company in order to identify adequate data. All you need to do, fulfill this data in a template and pass on this information to our company. And we use these templates in order to bring the data into Dynamics AX. Alternatively, if your company rather have all of these templates to be consolidated into one, simply you can use a different process and ask us in order to generate all of these templates into one single workbook. So by generating all of these templates into one workbook, we have the capability to just pass on one workbook to your company, and within this workbook you have so many different sheets that identifies every single one of those templates for you. So every single one of those templates that was created separately, now it would be consolidated into one workbook. That would be more manageable solution for some of the organization that they would like to have one template for one module. We have the capability to provide you the template in many different formats, separately or combination of all. Now if I open up this specific template, you notice that within this specific workbook, every single sheet resembles a separate template. So regardless of how you pass on the data to us, you have the capability to use our solution in order to simplify the data migration for you. In this demonstration, I only created a few templates for simplicity of my demonstration. However, our solution creates hundreds of templates necessary for each module. This will speed up the data migration process. The second step is template validation. Our templates provide color-coded suggestions for erroneous cells. It validates all the dependent setup forms prior to importing the master data. We also validate hard-coded drop-down fields. Not only we read all the enumerators, but also we validate all the hard-coded drop-down fields available in Dynamics AX. Now using one of the templates, I populate the data for one of the fields available for National Motor Freight Code. As you can see in this template, I identify a brand new code for National Motor Freight Code. Let's verify the existing codes available within Dynamics AX. I switch back to Product Master, and as you see, there's a field associated with NMFC code, National Motor Freight Classification. I do the view detail, and as you see, these are my existing codes. Please note that there is a specific class that I've identified, and these are the existing values. The value of the LTL class consists of the following: 10, 20, and 30. For this demonstration, I'd like to identify a completely different value, number 40. I specify this number to demonstrate how our template will validate the data and provide color-coded suggestion for erroneous cell. I populate the additional fields and specify the company in which I like to import this data into. The company of my choice is DAT company. Now let's close this form and also verify an additional setup form. If you notice, there's a product dimension group. Since I'm importing a product master in this demonstration, we require to have a product dimension group. Please note, by right-clicking and viewing detail, currently I have only one product dimension. I called it PD1. Our template available for product dimension group allows us to create a brand new product dimension group. I call this new group PD2, which identifies the product dimension number 2. As you see, when you create a new product dimension group, there are 4 dimensions available: configuration, size, color, and style. There are available checkboxes that you need to enable or disable. You have to identify whether or not you would like to use any of these dimensions. The checkboxes can be populated within our templates. Since I don't wish to create this specific product dimension, I delete this and I rather use the template in order to create a brand new product dimension group. In this template, I choose configuration, size, color, and style, and I make all of these dimensions to be enabled for trade agreements for both purchase and sales prices. Then I specify the company of my choice to import this specific product dimension group. Now I close this template. The next template is the product master dimension values. For each one of those product dimensions, you need to identify the values. Our template allows you to create values for each one of those dimensions within the product dimension group. As we see, configuration, size, color, and style are available. I identify the name of the product in which I would like to have configuration values. I specify configuration name, configuration ID, and the description. I specify additional information for size, color, and style. Needless to say, we support translation for every single one of these values. Again, I specify the company of my choice in order to import the data into the system. I close this template. As you notice once more, there are currently no available values existed. I click close and I carry on with the next template. As you see, currently I have only one product, which has been already added into the system. Another template I'd like to introduce is the product template. In this scenario, I identify the product yet to be created. The type of this product would be item. You can also specify the product type to be a service. I specify the search name and additional information in regard to this specific product. As you notice, by going through the detail of the first product of mine, I've already identified a color group called color 1. So therefore I put color 1. I already have additional groups for size and style, which I identified within my template. Since it's the product master, you need to specify configuration technology. Please note that within Dynamics AX, the value of a configuration technology is highlighted as predefined variant with a space between predefined and variant. Let's copy and paste this into our Excel in order to verify to see if this is the proper value. As I mentioned before, we support translation, so I need to specify the language ID. I populate the rest of the information, such as name and description, and whether or not I would like to have our solution to generate variants for this specific master product based on the values of the product dimension group. I identify the NMFC code for National Motor Freight Classification, which relates to the warehouse management. Populate the rest of the information, and intentionally I change some of these values to be a completely different values that don't exist, such as a style 2. If you notice again, I only have a style 1, but intentionally I put a different value in my template to be a style 2 to demonstrate the validation within my template. Similarly, for size 1, I identify a completely different value, such as size 11. Now I close this and I process our template. In this section, since few of the fields are erroneous, the template validation should fail. And as you see, the template validation failed. Error message indicates the operation could not import the product. However, our solution automatically inserts all the setup data necessary into the system. For the next time we run the process, it will speed up the operation. Let's verify this. First, I switch back and I open up one of my templates. As you notice, I do not have a value of 40 for LTL class code. Our color-coded suggestion provides existing data in the system, and it tells you what are the valid values. As you see, I have values of 10, 20, and 30. I don't have 40. At this time, we can communicate with the customer and pass on this information to the customer by sending this template, and they can actually find out exactly where they made the mistake. Let's go ahead and fix this. I plug in one of the values that is valid. I changed 40 to 30. If you open up another template, such as the product master dimension values, you notice that this template indeed does not have any color-coded suggestion. That means the template has no error. So for this product, all of these values should be able to insert it into the system. I open up the product dimension group, and as you see, similarly, this specific template did not suggest any problem. Therefore, this specific product dimension group has already been created in Dynamics AX. Finally, if I go to the product, you notice that the color-coded event shows that the size and the style are problematic. And as you notice, the predefined variant, which I've copied and pasted into my template, is not a valid value, despite the fact Dynamics AX product detail page suggested that the value of the variant configuration technology is a predefined variant with a space between. The real value is indeed predefined variants. So we identify the hard-coded drop-down right off of the Dynamics AX, and we find the proper value. So let's go ahead and correct some of these problems. I specify the proper values for predefined variants as our template suggested. Change the style 2 to style 1 and size 11 to size 1. Also, if you notice, the NMFC code does not exist. So therefore, if I fix the problem with this product, the NMFC code is supposed to be created automatically. I save this template and I close it. Once more as a reminder, the template of product dimension group did not have any problem. Also, the product master dimension values did not have any problem either. We are going to identify whether or not this product has been created. I switch back to Dynamics AX, and as you see, by using the drop-down, indeed, the first run, when we ran the process and tried to import the data into the system, even though could not import the product number 2, but it detected that the product dimension number 2 can be created. So therefore, we have already created that. So the next time when we run the process, that will speed up the data migration process. If I view detail it, you see that the PD2 indeed has been created. Let's go ahead and delete this anyways, and we run it again. Now I run the process once more, and since I've already fixed all the problems within my templates, as you notice, immediately it will create product number 2. Pay attention to the time that it took to create one product. It was a fraction of a second. Our solution is extremely fast, and the more we run it, is a self-evolving and self-learning solution. So it speeds up the data migration process. Now if I switch back to Dynamics AX and refresh, you notice that the product number 2 has been indeed created. If I go to the edit, you notice that the NMFC code has been generated. I did not have NMFC 1122, but as part of my template, this code has been indeed generated. We verify additional information, such as the dimension group. You notice that again, the product dimension group number 2 has been created as part of our template. We also have created the values for the product dimension. For this product, off of our templates, we have created a value for configuration. We support the translation. We have created a value for the size. The translation is available. Created the color with the translation as well as the style with the translation. We had the capability in order to also create variants right off of our templates. I close this form and now I switch back to my product for the final demonstration. Now I take advantage of Excel features and I copy and paste this specific line in order to simulate having multi-line templates. I use the features within Excel, drag and drop certain columns in order to change the values of the product number, search name, and name. We also change the description of each product. Needless to say, we can change some of these product dimension groups. For the demonstration's sake, I intentionally change some of these values to have intentional problems. I even change the legal entity value. I save this template and I run the process again. And as you see, this time, since I do have an issue with one of my templates, the template validation will fail. Let's go ahead and verify. I open up the product, and as you see, for every single row, the color-coded suggestion in our template identifies the problem with each row. I hope by going through this solution, you can speed up the data migration process, and that gives you an add-on value to an existing framework. We have worked very hard in order to make Dynamics AX more friendly when it comes to the data migration and help partners in order to speed up the data migration and save customers money. As you see, by the time I fix the problems within my template, the color-coded event automatically changes the color and verifies the proper value and removes the color-coded. I run the process again, and as you see, within a fraction of a second, automatically created all these products. As we run this process, our engine automatically speeds up the process, and originally when you pay attention to the first product, when I created the product number 2, it actually took about half a second. But now you notice that every single product takes almost a tenth of a second. We have tested our solution, and this solution runs extremely fast, and you can save lots of time and money by the time you do the data migration. By refreshing this, you see that all of my products have indeed been brought over, and for each product you notice that there are adequate information added into the system properly. I hope you enjoyed this demonstration, and we would love to hear back from you. Feel free to contact us. Thank you for your time and have a great day.